Good morning, everyone. We're going to record our session this morning so it can be viewed later for those who might not be able to attend this morning. I believe that with the recording, it will ask you to click yes on your screen so that you will be included in the recording. We're going to get started here in just a second. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yep.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. We're so glad you could join us today. And it's been a while since I've used Zoom, so let's see here. Okay. I want to introduce myself, Carla McWilliams. I'm the Deputy Director of the Historic Preservation Division, and I'm joined by three of my colleagues here at HPD. If you would like to introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Stephen Moffson, and I'm the State and National Register Coordinator for HPD.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Brock. I'm the Architectural Reviewer here at HPD.
I'm Matt Syons. I'm a historian with HPD. I work on tax credits and historic markers.
Thank you, everyone. This is my great team that have been instrumental in getting the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund for the second round in place, and we're really happy you're here. Thanks for coming to the application assistance training session. For those interested in learning more about how to apply for the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund grant program, we're in our second round of applications, second year of the grant program. We're anticipating 5 years total for the grant program. And I just want to make sure that it's clear that funding for the program is from state funding. The format for today is that staff from the Historic Preservation Division, mostly me, will be moving us through a PowerPoint to describe the application process. My colleagues will jump in where I've left out some information. And while the presentation is going, if you have any questions, we ask that you put them in the chat. And staff may be able to answer them during the presentation, but if not, we will hold them to the end where we will have a question and answer session. We'd like to ask attendees to stay muted and to have your videos off while we're in the presentation portion of the meeting this morning. But I'm just going to jump in. Anything else from my colleagues that I missed for this introduction? Matt?
No, sounds good.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so we're going to, so that's today's date, February 5th. We're doing application assistance. A little bit about the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund, or CPRF, as we speak in acronym a lot of the time. The governor signed the legislation for the Land of Enchantment Legacy Fund back in March of 2023. The CPRF is one of 8 funds that are funded across 6 state departments. And we're currently in round 2 of the fund with 5 years anticipated. The round 1 of the CPRF application, the announcement went out in December of 2023, and applications were due in February of 2024. We received 33 applications. Several months went by when staff reviewed, and the Cultural Properties Review Committee also reviewed the applications, and they were approved by the Cultural Properties Restoration, or excuse me, the Cultural Properties Review Committee in June of 2024. Since this was a revived program, it was using a rule for the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund that was established in the 1990s. It's been a little bit of a bumpy road in terms of establishing the first round of contracts, but our contracts are currently in progress. So the 5 projects that were funded as part of that round 1 include the main library in Santa Fe. The project is going for interior rehabilitation drawings. The Deming Luna Mimbres Museum in Deming will have a window study completed for all of the windows of the historic building. The Silver City Waterworks was funded for interior rehabilitation projects, fixing the walls. The State Land Office was given a grant to stabilize 4 Dinetta Pueblitos. And then the final project was the fire station at the Albuquerque Rail Yards. And that's a stabilization project there. So all of those projects total just shy of $1 million, which was the available amount of funding for round 1. Getting into what round 2 applications are, you'll find information on our website. On our homepage, nmhistoricpreservation.org, is this page of the slideshow, which references another page on our website. You can also find that under the drop-down menu in programs. And this is what the web page looks like, where you can find all of the information about the CPRF. So this is some of what the page looks like. And on the page, we have the grant announcement, which is a 1-page announcement for the program. Administration documents, which includes the manual for the grants program and also the legislation that supports the program. We have an FAQs document in case you have additional questions, you might want to check that out. We also have information about the schedule. The application deadline is March 18th at 5 p.m. And that awards will be completed by April of 2025. So we have a more ambitious schedule in terms of reviewing grant applications this year. For round 2, we actually streamlined the application, requesting more information on application forms in an effort to help us with the review process. And the anticipated time frame for each of the grants is 2 years from the start date. So all of the application forms can be also found on the website for download. So who is eligible to apply? The grant is open to state agencies, which is a department, agency, institution, or political subdivisions of the state of New Mexico. This includes cities, towns, municipalities, villages, counties, universities, agencies and departments of the state of New Mexico, like the Department of Economic Development or the Department of Cultural Affairs. It also includes land grant associations and acequia associations. What kind of properties are eligible? Cultural properties are what is eligible, and we'll discuss this more coming up. And those cultural properties should be owned by a state agency. And so the state agency as defined above. So some of the sample questions we've gotten about eligibility so far: can a city partner with a nonprofit or private property owner and work on a private property or one owned by a nonprofit? The answer is no. Applications must be from a state agency and the property must be owned by the state agency. Our property is listed in the National Register and we're a nonprofit. Are we eligible to apply? No, again, the CPRF is only open to state agencies. We're a tribal entity, can we apply? Again, no, the CPRF is only open to state agencies. Does the CPRF require national significance? And this correlates to how the National Register listing is listed in the National Register, what level of significance. We do not require national significance. And then we'll have more of a discussion about the cultural property status coming up. Is the federal government eligible to apply? No, the CPRF is only open to state agencies. We are a state agency and have a historic museum building, but it's been changed and added onto over the years. Can we apply? No, the property has been heavily changed, altering the property's historic integrity, so it's no longer eligible. The National Register listed structure that we own was moved from its original site where it was listed. Is it eligible? No, since the property has been moved from its historic context when it was listed, it is no longer eligible. So those are just some of the example questions we've gotten so far, and I thought that I'd put them in here today. We thought we'd frame the presentation around the scoring matrix, just showing the level of importance related to some of the application forms. And so we'll first focus on the scope of work form, which includes professional expertise and the damage, deterioration, and threats. So this is application form number 3, which gets 30 points for the scope of work and professional expertise, and 10 points for damage, deterioration, and threats. Again, you can find the application forms on our website. All 12 of the forms are there. It may seem daunting that there's 12 forms, but most of the forms are only 1 page. Most of the applications are in Word, and 1 form is in Excel. So this is the scope of work form. It's one of the longer application forms. And so what we did here was break this into 3 parts. So we focused first on the damage, deterioration, and threat. That's the first question on the application form number 3. And the question on there says, describe the current condition of the property and how the property has sustained damage or deterioration. Describe how the property is currently threatened due to its condition, or if there are extenuating concerns affecting the property that will be remedied by the project. So what we want to hear from you, to hear from applicants on these forms, and especially to answer this question, is tell us about the property's current condition. How has it sustained damage or deterioration? What are the current threats to the property due to its condition or extenuating concerns? And as part of this grant project, are there remedies proposed for extenuating concerns? So a lot of these more detailed questions that we ask, we also ask you to stick to a word count for each of the answers. So the goal here is to be detailed, but also be succinct. Moving into part 2 of that application number 3, the focus is on the scope of work. And so the questions ask about what work will be completed, what elements will be affected, what drawings are available, provide a cost estimate, and what kind of in-kind assistance will be provided with the project. So tell us what work will be completed. Again, be detailed, but be succinct. What parts of the property will be affected? Are there drawings and plans available for the proposed work? What is the cost estimate for the project? Please include that. Provide details about the in-kind assistance. In-kind assistance for grant projects is considered non-monetary contribution of goods, services, or volunteer work that support the project. And again, keep to the word count for each of the questions. And for the third section of application form 3, we focus on professional expertise. We want you to tell us about the professionals and the contractors that will be performing the work. Tell us about their experience with similar projects and with preservation projects. Again, keep to the word count. And also keep in mind that the scope of work scoring will also include the photos and the budget information, which are individual forms as well. So our next section, excuse me, is focusing on grant management. The form asks for you to tell us who's going to be serving as the grant manager. tell us what experience the applicant organization has in grant management. Has the applicant worked with HPD before on a grant project? Has the organization ever defaulted on or not completed a grant project? Tell us what happened. Describe any other pertinent experience related to grant management. Describe how the grant project will be managed. And for each form, and I'll get into this at the end, you're going to fill in the top part, which asks for the project name and the applicant name. And we want you to delete the directions box and then change the font color to black. I'll talk about that at the end as well. But we really want the applicants to tell us what and how grant management will occur and who will be doing the work. We really found that this was something that was missed in the first round of grant applications. And so we really want to see specifically how you're going to manage the grant. Preservation standards. This is for 20 points in the scoring matrix. Our office, so this is application number 5. Preservation standards, our office and many historic preservation related offices around the country use the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. We most often use the rehabilitation standards under the treatment standards. In the application form, you can see, over here, the boxes, there are 10 boxes that reflect the 10 standards. And the standards emphasize repair first before replacement, and replacement in kind if replacement is warranted. The main focus of the standards is to preserve historic character. And so what we ask you to do is to read each of the 10 standards, check the boxes of the standards that apply, and then in the final question, describe how the project will be complying with those standards. So one of the goals of this is to have applicants understand what we're seeking in terms of rehabilitation standards and preservation standards, and to have an understanding of what that means for each project. The long-term preservation is worth 10 points. And what we want you to do here is to describe how the organization will be caring for the property after the project is done. Also on this form, we ask you to acknowledge that a preservation agreement will be established. That agreement will be established as part of the contracting process. But we want you to have an understanding that we will require a 10-year preservation agreement. And one of the last 2 sections of the grant application scoring matrix is the match, and that's for 5 points. On the form, we want you to check the boxes, one of the 2 boxes saying you are going to submit match as part of the project, or you're not going to submit match. And if you are going to submit match, we would like you to identify how much cash you're going to submit, and also how much in-kind goods and services you're going to submit. No, and we also ask you to sign the form at the bottom to commit to what the match will be for the project. What we want to also do is to make sure that this this match amount is reflected also on the budget. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So this is one of the last matrix scoring item, which is the cultural property special status of the project. For this form, which is form 7, we divided it into 2 parts. So the top part focuses on the property location, the historic name of the property, and the current owner. Oops, that's right. And then the second part talks about property listing status, and I'll get in, actually, I'm going to have my colleague Stephen Mofson jump in about that in a minute. But the form also asks you to fill in the use of the property. What is the current use? Is it an office building? Is it an archaeological site? It asks for you to put in the property history and the construction history to the best of your ability. Provide the date the building was built or the property was built. Provide the architect name, the builder name, any information that you have about the building history. We ask you to include that. We also ask you to describe the property. The property description should talk about the physical attributes of the building. What's the building height? It's 2 stories. The materials, it's a 2-story stucco building with a flat roof. The style of the building, and any other site characteristics. And then we also want you to include the historical background, describing the property history. For many of our applications in round 1, people included the nomination for listing of the property in the National Register, and we don't want you to include that this time. And we ask you to not copy the nomination information as to the historic information. We want you to really read that history information and succinctly describe it. You have 300 words to describe the historical background. And then finally, in sources, we want you to just list the sources of the information that you have for the building's history and description. So I'm going to ask my colleague, Stephen, to unmute and talk a little bit more about property listing status. Stephen.
Hey, so I want to talk a little bit about the National Register because it's really important in this application process. There's 2 roles that the National Register plays. It's a qualification for applying for the grant, but it's also an item that's scored on the grant. So, it's really important that you understand the basics, and that you're able to understand, that your property is listed or is not listed or is it eligible. But there are a lot of variables, and I just want to go over some of the very basics of the National Register and how it applies to the CPRF grant process. In New Mexico, we have 2 cultural registers. We have the National Register of Historic Places, and we also manage the State Register of Cultural Properties. The criteria for qualifying for these registers is exactly the same. It's just that the National Register is the register of higher order because it's reviewed by outside historians at the National Register in Washington, D.C. But the points awarded for being listed in the CPRF are just the same. So in all of this, you actually don't have to fill out any forms or list a property, because you qualify for the program and you're awarded points for the program if you're listed in either register or you're eligible for listing in either register. So I just want to talk for just a minute about what qualifies you for listing, and then how you might find out if you're listing or if you're eligible. So the National Register has like 3 tests to determine if a property is eligible. So a property must be 50 years of age or older. And I'll tell you, and we have a lot of this information is there in the packet, or you can find it on our website, which Carla had already introduced to you. So 50 years of age, the property must have integrity, which is authenticity. So the property has to look like it did, retain all the physical features, when it was significant. And then third, the property has to be associated with some historic event or a significant person. It could be also eligible as just an important example of a style or type of architecture. And then lastly, we also list archaeological sites. And you could read more on our website about, you know, how archaeological sites qualify. So to qualify for this grant, you could be listed in the National Register of Historic Places. You could be listed in just the State Register of Cultural Properties. You can be listed as a National Historic Landmark, and those are actually quite rare. And then if you're not listed, you could submit information, you know, photos and background, and to our office in advance of your actually completing the application, so that you know you're not spending a lot of time on the 12 parts of this application, but you know in advance that maybe you're not eligible because you're not listed and you're not you don't meet the standards for qualifying. But this is the important point. You can be listed, and you know, we have 2,000 listings, and there are a lot more historic properties in the state than the 2,000 listings. But if you're not listed, you know, like I said, you submit material, we'll review it, and we could, you know, try and sort out whether the property is eligible or not eligible for listing, and thereby qualifies for the for application for the grant. This information is available again on our website, which is nmhistoricpreservation.org. So you'll go there and you'll see a drop-down menu, and it'll say cultural registers, and you click on that, and so you'll have a lot of information. And one thing you'll find is a spreadsheet that lists all of our 2,000 listings in the state and national registers. So that could confirm for you that you are listed or you're not listed. And then if you're not, again, if you're not listed, but you think your property may be eligible, you know, please send us information, you know, photos, history, and, you know, anything that you think will help us. In fact, there's a document on the National Register website that's called questionnaire. Really, all you have to do is fill that out, and it's not very long. It's 2 pages, and you can send it in, and then we can start, you know, sorting out whether your property is eligible, and therefore whether you qualify for the grant. You can email me. My email is available on, and my name and email again are available on our website, so you could just email me directly. The last thing is that even if your property is listed in the state or national register, it still has to be eligible. It still has to meet all the criteria. And some properties have been listed like 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and they've actually, you know, maybe been changed over those years. So we still need to verify that your property is eligible. We could do this when you submit an application, or you could find out in advance by, again, contacting me, and my contact information is available on our website. Carla, do you think I've forgotten anything major, important?
No, I think you did good. Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Just as an example, I put a picture of the Little Red Schoolhouse on the screen. And it was a property that was listed, I believe, in the 80s, and it had been moved in the 90s. And so it was no longer eligible for listing in the National Register, even though it is listed. So those are some of those unique circumstances that, if you have something like that with your property, please reach out and just to confirm before going through the application process. Okay, so now we're discussing application form 8, photographs. We found that applications in the first round only had a couple photographs, and we were we're really hoping that applicants will complete this section. This section will actually count towards your scope of work points. But we really want to see what the property looks like. We aren't able to visit each applicant site and confirm its eligibility and its integrity. So photographs really help us. And what we want you to do is to take a site plan or floor plan and to show the location of each photograph, where each photograph was taken. And as an example, so we have a sample example on our website of a made-up project that that the General Services Department is doing for the Baton Building. This is a building where our office is located. So we thought we would make up a mock project to illustrate. But what I did here was try to show that photo number 1 up here was reflected on the next page after the site plan. And this shows the north elevation of the property. And then photo number 2 is keyed to this photo, which shows the northwest corner. And as you can see, with the north arrow facing this way, this is the north elevation and this is the northwest corner. So the sample application will probably be really helpful in terms of getting a better understanding of what we're trying to seek here for the photos and the plans. But we're really hoping to see as much information about the property so we can easily review the grant applications this year in a more timely manner. Just as also an example, I just want to add this regarding the photographs. Your project may be just a roof replacement, for example, and it may seem odd that we request to have interior photographs, but again, it's all to gauge our understanding of the property and to gauge the integrity and the National Register eligibility of the property. So this is an example of the Baton Building with interior photographs. Our final form that I'm talking about today is the budget. We request that you separate your projects. So say you have a roof repair project and a stucco repair project. We also, we would like them listed separately. The reason for this is that we may not be able to fund your entire project, but if we are able to fund a portion of the project, it would be great to have those costs delineated so we can make, we could have some better decision making on our end. What you also want to keep in mind related to the budget is that administrative costs should not exceed 25% of the total budget. So your project coordinator should not be being paid more than 25% of the project total. So as an example, I filled out a budget. I'm the project coordinator here. I'm estimating that 20 hours will be used of my time. I make $35 an hour, and that's a total of $700. My contractor is Joe's Roofing, and his project is estimated to be $45,000, and the roof materials is estimated to be $75,000. So I put all of these in the total column because that's the total project cost, and then I delineate whether I'm putting those costs in the match column or it's part of the grant request. So in this case, the $700 for my time in managing the project are under match, and the remaining project costs are under the request for the HPD grant budget. So here's a breakout again of 2 different projects, the roof repair project and the stucco repair project. And you can see over here, I have the $700 in match again with a total project ask of $120,000. And similarly, the stucco repair project is $55,700 with no match for that project. So in totaling, this totals an amount of $175,700 for the grant request, and then $700 for the match. So in this case, you want to make sure that that $700 in match is reflected on your match form, whatever that amount is. So this is the sample application we have on our website. This is what it looks like on the website. Please review the sample application for guidance. It's 41 pages long. We hope that it provides some guidance as to how to fill out the application form. And then just as a couple final notes, each of the application forms has this project name and applicant on the top, and it should be standardized for each of the forms. Each form has a directions box, and so for each of the forms, you'll want to delete the directions box. When you're done filling out the questions, you want to change the red font on each of the forms to black. You want to save each of the forms as an individual Adobe document, and then you want to combine all of the Adobe documents into one document. So I think that's a pretty good start with the application forms for the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund. What I'd like to do now is just open it up and see if there's any questions, or if my colleagues have additional information that I may have missed. Ooh, my video is blurry. Any questions out there? Anything from my colleagues?
I think it just might be worth emphasizing that it's best to figure out your eligibility situation sooner rather than later. So you don't go through the process of filling out the application and submitting it, and unfortunately finding out that the building you're interested in getting money for is not eligible. So it's best if you're unsure to start that soon.
That's a great suggestion. It does seem to be one of the harder elements of the application process to understand. And so just having confirmation from our office that your property is eligible would probably be advised before you jump ahead. Did I see a question from Lisa?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I wonder if you talk a little bit more about the drawings. I'm not quite sure I understand what you're looking for. Of course, I see drawings that relate to photographs, like this is, you know, where photograph number 1 is on this part of the building or whatever. But I'm not sure what kind of drawings you're talking about exactly. Like, let's say we have stucco repair, we have Adobe wall repair. What kind of drawings are you looking for?
So in that case, if it was an Adobe wall repair, the contractor could sketch the elevations and say, we're going to patch these sections of, you know, indicate on the drawings, like they're going to patch these sections of the wall for the north elevation, and the south elevation they'll patch this section of the wall, that kind of thing. So just something that's descriptive of what the project will entail.
So many of the drawings will be the same. They're just going to be labeled differently, is really what it is. Okay.
That could be the case, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
So in-kind can also be cash too. You kind of really focused on volunteers, but I want to make sure that cash is allowed. Okay.
Yeah, and that should be shown in the budget as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi. Can you talk more about I guess the language that would be used in describing the SOI standards, and just like the verbiage, I guess, that we would use?
Yeah. So the verbiage related to preservation standards is in the standards themselves, could probably provide some direction in terms of of how to word a response. You may also want to look at the sample application. Any suggestions from my colleagues? Gretchen.
Yeah, hi, this is Gretchen. One thing you could do is just say that this project plans to we're going to repair our historical windows rather than replace them. So that's one of the standards, is that it indicates to emphasizes repair to historic materials rather than replacement. So you could cite that one. There's another one that says any new construction will be differentiated from old. So that's another one. Basically, you can just kind of either refer to them by the number, because they are numbered, or just in general say that, we are planning on doing. This will help us preserve the historic property. This will help, avoid more deterioration, things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen.
This is Lisa again from Hillsborough. I'm looking at the budget and its mileage, which of course no one lives in this area that will do the work, but we wouldn't pay the mileage. They would just, they give us a bid for the completion of their work. So
Yeah.
is that all right to leave blank?
Of course, you could
Okay,
just even
very
delete
good.
it. Yeah, if mileage isn't an applicable cost, I know some contractors will require mileage, and so that may be something that is a line item that you want to reimburse, or it may be just included in their bulk rate.
Very good.
So let's see here. I'm going to put all of staff email addresses in the chat.
Nice.
So feel free to copy those and hold on to those if you have questions. Stephen especially can be reached regarding questions about cultural property status, and any other grant questions can be directed to me or my other two colleagues. We'd like to thank you for coming today and really appreciate your interest in the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.